The hidden recording, new audio from the day Nolan Wells disappeared. The day Nolan Wells disappeared began like any other day that would later become unforgettable. At the time, nobody knew that ordinary conversations, background noises, and small moments captured through technology would eventually become the focus of a desperate search for answers. When a person vanishes, investigators often return to the smallest details: the last messages, the final phone calls, the people who were nearby, and the sounds that surrounded those final hours. Months after Nolan Wells was reported missing, officials announced that additional audio connected to the day of his disappearance had been reviewed. The recording immediately became a major point of interest because investigators believed it could provide another piece of the timeline. For Nolan's family, the release represented something they had been waiting for: another opportunity to understand what happened during those final moments. The audio did not provide an instant solution. Instead, it created more questions. Every second of the recording mattered. Investigators carefully examined voices, background sounds, timestamps, and possible clues hidden beneath normal conversation. In missing person investigations, audio evidence can be complicated. A sound in the background could be meaningful, or it could simply be an everyday noise with no connection to the disappearance.
Bait, Tyndall says, means investigators have an added obstacle while hearing from witnesses.
So we have to make sure that we have a good, solid investigation, and we also want to make sure that witnesses that we're getting their impressions of what happened, not just based on what they see or hear on social media. So I think it has a real detrimental effect when people start particularly putting out misinformation on public venues and on the internet. And
Tyndall says that with the circulation of misinformation, he encourages people to direct their eyes to what's happening locally.
If you're trying to find that information, talk to the people that were on Island that day.
Explain relationships between individuals and help authorities understand events that may not have been captured through physical evidence. In the case of Nolan Wells, witness accounts have played a major role as investigators attempt to reconstruct the events surrounding his disappearance and death. But for a family searching for answers, every detail feels important. The release of the recording changed the conversation surrounding Nolan's disappearance. People who had followed the case began examining the timeline more closely. They wanted to know where Nolan was, who he was with, and what events occurred before communication stopped. Investigators emphasized that evidence must be examined carefully. A recording alone does not tell the entire story. It must be compared with phone records, witness statements, digital information, and physical evidence. The goal is not to create theories. It is to build a timeline based on facts. For Nolan's loved ones, however, the emotional impact was much different. Hearing audio from the day someone disappeared can be overwhelming. A voice, a familiar phrase, or even background sounds can bring back memories while also creating pain because the person they are listening for is still missing. The investigation became a battle between hope and uncertainty. Every missing person case has a critical window of time, the hours before and after someone disappears. Detectives often describe those moments as the foundation of the investigation. Understanding what happened during that period can determine whether a case moves forward or remains filled with unanswered questions. The newly examined audio became another piece of that puzzle. Investigators reportedly focused on several key questions. When exactly was the recording made? Who was present? Was there anything unusual happening in the background? Did the conversation match the known timeline? Were there details that had previously been overlooked? Those questions are common in complex investigations because memories can change over time. Witnesses may remember events differently months later. A recording, when properly analyzed, can provide an objective reference point. But even with technology, solving a disappearance is rarely simple. The days following Nolan's disappearance were filled with searches, interviews, and emotional appeals from people hoping for information. Friends and family members wanted answers. Community members wanted to help. Investigators worked to separate facts from rumors and evidence from speculation. The new audio brought renewed attention to the case. Some people believed the recording could reveal a hidden truth. Others warned that a single piece of evidence should not be treated as a complete explanation. Experienced investigators understand that the smallest clue can be important, but only when it fits into the larger picture. Behind every piece of evidence is a person. For Nolan's family, this was never just an investigation. It was about a person they loved, a son, a friend, and someone whose absence changed their lives. The search for answers was not about headlines or online discussions. It was about understanding what happened and finding closure. As investigators continued analyzing the recording, they faced the difficult task of interpreting information without jumping to conclusions. A responsible investigation requires patience. Every possibility must be considered, and every claim must be tested against evidence. The audio became a symbol of the entire search, a reminder that even after time passes, unanswered questions remain. It showed how technology can preserve moments that people never expected to become important. A simple conversation recorded on an ordinary day can later become a critical part of an investigation. The question remained, what happened to Nolan Wells during those final hours? The answer would not come from one recording alone. It would come from connecting every available piece of information, the timeline, the witnesses, the evidence, and the details that had not yet been fully understood. The search continued, and somewhere inside those recorded moments was the hope that the truth could finally be found. The Spotlight and the Truth, a story about Officer Tatum, Howard, and the media storm. When a controversial incident captures public attention, the story often becomes bigger than the people directly involved. It becomes a battle of opinions, emotions, and competing versions of the truth. In the middle of the storm are usually the individuals whose actions are being questioned, the people demanding answers, and the commentators who analyze every detail under the brightest possible spotlight. That was the situation surrounding Officer Tatum and Howard, two names that became connected to a heated public discussion. As questions began spreading, the attention shifted from what happened in a single moment to what those moments represented: accountability, fairness, and whether powerful voices are willing to examine uncomfortable truths. For many watching from the outside, the situation became a reminder of how quickly a person's reputation can change in the age of social media. One video, one statement, or one accusation could transform public perception overnight. Supporters may defend someone they believe is being judged unfairly, while critics may argue that accountability is necessary when questions arise. Officer Tatum found himself at the center of intense attention. People analyzed his words, his actions, and his response to criticism. Some believed the situation demonstrated the importance of transparency. Others argued that public judgment should wait until all facts are available. The debate became even more intense as different commentators offered their perspectives. Howard's involvement added another layer to the conversation. Viewers questioned motivations, decisions, and whether everyone involved was being treated equally. In highly emotional cases, people often focus not only on what happened, but also on how the story is presented to the public. That is where media personalities become influential. Nancy Grace, known for her aggressive style of legal commentary, has spent decades discussing high-profile cases and controversial events. Her approach often focuses on victims, accountability, Nolan Wells and the role of witnesses in a fictional discussion surrounding this type of and any major investigation. Witnesses might expect her to examine the most important pieces, challenge explanations, and ask what justice is being served. Who can provide investigators. The role of a commentator is complicated. Describe what happened before, judges, or juries. Their job is to analyze information, raise questions, and discuss issues with the audience. However, because millions of people may listen to their opinions, their words can strongly influence public perception. A controversy involving law enforcement creates especially strong emotions because it touches on trust. Police officers hold positions of authority, and many people believe that authority must come with responsibility. At the same time, officers and their supporters often argue that they deserve fairness and due process before being condemned publicly. The conflict between those viewpoints is what creates such intense debate. The idea of someone being exposed by another person, regardless of race or background, often becomes a major part of online conversations. People may interpret an event through their own experiences and beliefs. Some may see a person revealing wrongdoing. Others may see an unfair attack. The truth usually requires looking beyond emotional reactions and examining verified facts. The public often wants immediate answers, but investigations and legal processes move slower than social media discussions. Evidence must be reviewed, statements must be compared, context must be considered. For Officer Tatum, Howard, and everyone connected to the controversy, the lasting impact would depend not only on what happened, but also on how they responded afterward. Public figures and officials often face a difficult choice when criticized: defend themselves immediately, remain silent, or acknowledge mistakes. Each decision can shape how the public views them. A response can either calm a situation or create more questions. The media plays a powerful role in that process. A single interview can change the direction of a story. A single statement can become a headline. A single disagreement can turn into a nationwide conversation about larger issues. The most important question is often not who wins the argument online. The more important question is whether the public learns the full truth. In controversial situations, emotions run high because people care about justice. They want wrong actions addressed, and they want innocent people protected. Those goals are shared by many people, even when they disagree about how to reach them. The story surrounding Officer Tatum and Howard represents a larger conversation happening across society. How do we balance accountability with fairness? How do we separate facts from assumptions? How do we make sure that public pressure does not replace evidence? Those questions remain important long after the headlines disappear. The spotlight of public attention can be overwhelming, but it can also reveal issues that might otherwise be ignored. It forces people to examine decisions, question systems, and demand better standards. Ultimately, every controversy leaves behind a lesson. Sometimes it is about responsibility. Sometimes it is about communication. Sometimes it is about the importance of waiting for the complete story before reaching a final judgment. The public may remember the arguments, the interviews, and the debates, but history is usually shaped by the facts that survive after the noise fades away. Nolan Wells, the audio that could change everything. On July 4th, 2026, 18-year-old Nolan Wells traveled with friends to Horn Island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast for what was supposed to be a holiday celebration. Before the weekend ended, he had disappeared. 2 days later, search crews discovered his body, launching one of the most closely watched death investigations in recent years. As investigators worked to reconstruct Nolan's final hours, one piece of evidence unexpectedly became the center of public attention. Not a surveillance video, not a confession, but a recording from a call placed to a private marine towing company known as Sea-Tow. The recording was made at approximately 4 p.m. on July 4th after the group experienced mechanical problems with their boat. Initially, it appeared to be a routine request for assistance. However, after the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources released the audio through public records request, thousands of people began listening to it repeatedly, believing they could hear voices and statements in the background related to Nolan's disappearance. https://www.fox34.com. Within hours of the recording becoming public, social media exploded. Amateur investigators slowed the audio, isolated background sounds, increased volume levels, and posted their own interpretations online. Every upload seemed to produce a different conclusion. Some listeners claimed they heard Nolan's name. Others believed someone said, "Oh my God." Still others insisted they heard statements suggesting panic or even references to someone being dead. None of these interpretations were officially confirmed by investigators. People.com. The uncertainty surrounding the recording created a perfect environment for speculation. Human brains naturally try to identify familiar words from unclear sounds, especially when listeners already expect to hear something significant. This psychological phenomenon has made the audio one of the most debated pieces of evidence in the investigation. People.com. The controversy intensified when independent audio engineer Janetta Brantley released what she described as an enhanced version of the recording. Using professional software, she attempted to reduce background noise and improve speech clarity. Her version spread rapidly across TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms, receiving millions of views within days. The Griot. Supporters believed the enhanced recording made previously hidden conversations understandable. Critics argued that enhancement software can unintentionally introduce artifacts or alter ambiguous sounds, making listeners believe they hear words that were never actually present. Because of this disagreement, experts urged caution before treating any unofficial enhancement as evidence. People.com. Professional forensic audio analyst Jennifer Owen publicly addressed the controversy. She explained that authentic forensic enhancement differs significantly from internet editing. According to Owen, investigators ideally work from original uncompressed recordings rather than copies released publicly. Every conversion, upload, compression, or edit can change an audio file in subtle ways. She emphasized that determining what is genuinely present on a recording requires strict forensic procedures and specialized equipment. People.com. Owen also warned about confirmation bias. If listeners are told beforehand what they are supposed to hear, many will genuinely hear those words whether or not they exist. This is one reason forensic experts avoid providing suggested transcripts before conducting independent analysis. People.com. Despite these warnings, public interest continued to grow. Numerous podcasts, YouTube creators, television commentators, and independent investigators dissected the recording frame by frame. Some argued it represented a breakthrough in the investigation. Others believed it was being misinterpreted entirely. iHeart. Nolan's family has continued searching for answers. Their legal team announced that experts would independently evaluate the Cito recording alongside other available evidence. They have maintained that every possible lead deserves careful examination while avoiding unsupported conclusions. People.com. Meanwhile, investigators have not publicly stated that the recording proves foul play or identifies anyone responsible for Nolan's death. At the time of reporting, official investigators continued reviewing all available evidence while awaiting additional forensic analysis. Preliminary public information has not established a definitive cause or manner of death. People.com. As national attention increased, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Authorities announced arrests involving individuals accused of threatening witnesses, Nolan's friends, family members, and even a judge connected to someone involved in the investigation. These threats highlighted how emotionally charged the case had become and demonstrated the real-world consequences of widespread online speculation. People.com. One of the most important lessons from the Cito recording is the difference between public speculation and courtroom evidence. Investigators cannot rely solely upon what internet users believe they hear. Instead, they must establish authenticity, maintain chain of custody, verify the original recording, conduct repeatable forensic analysis, and determine whether any identifiable statements can be supported scientifically. Forensic audio examination often includes spectral analysis, frequency isolation, waveform comparison, noise reduction, synchronization with original recordings, and peer review by independent experts. Even then, experts sometimes conclude that certain words remain unintelligible rather than guessing at their meaning. This cautious approach is essential because criminal investigations require evidence that can withstand legal scrutiny. The Nolan Wells investigation remains active. While the Cito recording has become one of the most discussed aspects of the case, it represents only one piece of a much larger investigative puzzle any final that includes witness statements. Thank you, forensic examinations, hit the like button, evidence, and subscribe to this channel and Nolan Wells documentary. Whether the recording ultimately provides investigators with meaningful new information remains unknown. The death of
may eventually
18-year-old
answer
Nolan
critical
Wells
questions,
shocked his
or
Mississippi
it may simply
community
illustrate
and quickly
how
became
easily
one of the
ambiguous
most closely
evidence can
watched
divide public
investigations
opinion.
of 2026.
What is already clear is
what
that
began
the recording has
as a
become
holiday
symbolic
weekend
of
voting
the search
trip
for
to
truth.
Horn Island,
Every
turned
second
into
of
a
background
background audio
sparked national
has been
attention,
analyzed by
widespread
professionals
social media
and amateurs
speculation,
alike, and
families
countless
continue
theories.
seeking answers.
As investigators work to determine exactly what happened,
Experts
one
continue
aspect
urging
of the case
patience
became the
until
center of
official
public
forensic
debate.
conclusions
Witness
are complete.
statements.
Until those findings are
investigation,
released,
witness
the CETO
statements
recording
are among
should be
the
viewed
first
carefully.
pieces of evidence
It has generated
investigators
important
collect.
questions.
They help
But many
establish
claims
timelines,
circulating online
identify
remain
potential
unverified.
suspects or witnesses,
Distinguishing
explain
people's
between
movements,
confirmed facts,
and determine where
expert
physical
analysis
should be
and
examined.
internet speculation.
However,
will remain
statements are
essential
not automatically
as the
accepted
investigation
as
moves
fact.
forward. Nolan Wells' case, the role of witnesses in the search for the truth, GPS data, and any major investigation, forensic evidence, digital become one of the most important pieces interviews before reaching conclusions. They are the people who can provide investigators
disappearance
with a
and
timeline,
numerous individuals
describe what happened before and after an incident.
Bay, Tyndall
Among
says,
those
means
publicly
investigators
discussed
have
was
an
Bart
added
Edmiston
obstacle
Jr.,
while
a
hearing
former
from
teammate of
witnesses.
Wells.
So we have to
His
make sure that we
attorney
have a
and
good
family
solid
have stated that
investigation,
Bart
and we also want to
voluntarily
make sure that
cooperated
witnesses that
with
we're
the
going to, that we're
investigators,
getting their
answered
impressions of what
questions without
happened,
hesitation,
not just based on what they
provided
see or
access to
hear
his
on
boat
social
and
media. So
GPS
I think it has a real
and helped
detrimental
identify
effect when
potential
people start
witnesses.
particularly putting
They
out
have
misinformation
also firmly denied allegations
on public
circulating
venues and
online
on the
that he
internet.
played any role
Tyndall says that
in
with the
Nolan's
circulation of
death.
misinformation,
As
he
public
encourages
attention
people to
intensified,
direct their eyes
many
to what's
people on social
happening
media
locally.
attempted
If you're trying to find that
analyze
information,
every interview,
talk to the people that
emergency
were on
call,
Island that
and
day.
public comment. Explain relationships
interpreted
between
inconsistencies
individuals
as evidence
and help
of wrongdoing.
authorities understand
Others
events that
argue
may not
that
have been
differences
captured
in
through
recollection
physical
are
evidence.
after
In the
stressful
case of
or
Nolan
chaotic
Wells,
events.
witness accounts have
Importantly,
played a major
no
role
public
as
authority has
investigators
concluded
attempt
that
to
Bart made a
reconstruct
false
the events
statement or that
surrounding
any statement
his
he gave
disappearance
constituted
and death.
wrongdoing.
However,
One of the biggest
witness
mistakes
testimony
the public can make during
is
an
only
active
one part
investigation
of a much
is
larger
assuming
investigation.
that an inconsistent statement
and every statement
automatically
must be
proves
carefully
guilt.
examined.
Alongside
Investigators know
forensic evidence
that memory
digital
is
records,
imperfect.
photographs, videos,
People may remember
and other
events
information
differently
before investigators
depending on where
can
they were
determine
standing,
what happened,
what they
the
observed,
investigation
how much time
into
has
Nolan
passed,
Wells
or
drew
whether
significant
alcohol,
public
fear,
attention
or confusion
because of the
affected their
circumstances
recollection.
surrounding his
For that
disappearance.
reason, investigators began looking
alongside
into the events
objective
leading up to his
evidence
death
rather than in
they
isolation.
spoke with individuals
Another factor
who had
complicating
been
the
present
Wells
during the
investigation
trip has
and
been the
others
speed
who
at
may
which
have had
information spread online
about Nolan's
video clips,
movements,
emergency
interactions,
recordings,
and final
interview
hours.
excerpts.
These
and rumors
interviews
were shared
became a
millions
critical
of times.
part of
Some
establishing
users
a
claimed
timeline
certain names
and
could be
understanding
heard
the
on
environment
recordings,
surrounding the
while
tragedy.
others developed elaborate
Witnesses
theories
in
based on
cases
partial
like this
information.
often face intense
Bart
public attention
Edmiston's
because
attorney
people want
has
immediate
said that
answers.
this speculation
In the age of
resulted
social
in
media,
serious consequences,
interviews, rumors,
including
and
reported
partial
death threats
information
against him
can spread
and planned
rapidly,
legal action
causing
against
certain
people making
individuals to become
defamatory
the
claims.
focus of public
The
discussion.
Wells family's attorney
Before
has
investigators
likewise
have
emphasized
completed their
that the
work.
investigation remains
Law
active,
enforcement
and that
officials,
unanswered
however,
questions
must
deserve
follow a
careful
process that
examination.
relies on evidence
Public
rather
officials
than
have
online
continued to
theories.
seek photographs,
A person being
videos,
interviewed
and eyewitness
does not
accounts from
automatically
people
mean
who were
they
on
are a
Horn
suspect.
Island that day,
And a person being
demonstrating
mentioned
that
publicly
investigators are
does not
still
mean
gathering
investigators
evidence
have reached
rather than
a
relying
conclusion
on assumptions
about their involvement.
From an investigative standpoint,
One individual
statements
who
are
received
only one
significant
part
attention
of a much larger
was Bart
puzzle.
Edmiston Jr.,
Detectives
described
often compare
publicly
multiple
as a former
interviews
teammate and friend
over
of
time
Nolan Wells.
to identify
According to
consistencies,
statements from his
contradictions,
attorney and family,
or new information.
Bart cooperated
They may
with the
re-interview
investigators,
witnesses
provided information,
after additional
and
evidence
denies
is
any
collected.
involvement in
That
Nolan's
process
death.
is normal.
His
and does
representatives
not necessarily
have stated
imply
that he
dishonesty
voluntarily
by any
participated
witness.
in the investigation.
Cases involving
and that
groups of
online
friends can be
accusations
especially
against
difficult
him have caused
because
serious
memories
personal
often
consequences.
overlap or conflict.
No public authority
Individuals may
has
remember
announced that Bart
conversations
committed a
differently
crime
or focus
that
on
every
different
statement he
details.
provided was false.
Investigators
Understanding
expect this
witness
and use
statements
corroborating
requires
evidence
recognizing
to determine
that
which
memories
details
can be
are
complicated.
supported by independent
Investigators
facts.
know that
The
people
Nolan
who
Wells
experience
investigation
stressful
also
situations
highlights the
may
challenge
remember
of
events
balancing
differently.
public interest
Factors
with fairness
such as fear,
to individuals who have
confusion,
not been charged with
distance
any
from an
crime.
event, lighting
While
conditions,
many people seek
distractions,
answers Public accusations based solely on speculation can have lasting consequences. A difference for those two accounts does not automatically prove the investigation is being ongoing. And instead, investigators look for patterns and compare statements against evidence that can independently confirm the purpose or challenge what witnesses says to discover the truth through evidence, not through rumors or assumptions. Witness statements remain important because they help establish timelines and direct investigators toward additional evidence.
10 minutes after
But
that
they
is
must
when I got
always
to a
be
fight.
evaluated in
4 o'clock,
context and tested
altercation
against
had
objective facts.
happened between
The Nolan
one of my
Wells
brothers.
case
I went
continues
and
to
checked on
draw
him for
public
about
attention
20 minutes,
because many questions
20 to
remain
15 minutes.
unanswered.
I came back.
As
Nolan's
investigators
boat and
continue
the people
their
that we were
work,
with were
Okay,
gone.
it is
so
important
the last time
to
I
distinguish
personally
between
laid eyes on Nolan
verified
was
information,
at like
witness
3 o'clock.
accounts,
You know,
and
we left at
unproven
4:30.
theories. That distinction
Nolan
protects
was
both the
sitting by the
integrity
boat
of
with
the
that Katie
investigation
girl,
and the
and
rights of everyone
my
involved,
buddy
while allowing
yelled
the
at,
evidence,
you know,
not
yelled for
speculation,
Nolan,
to determine what happened.
get on the boat. We're leaving. She also mentioned that the last time she saw Nolan was when my buddy was yelling at him to get on the boat.
But the last time I saw Nolan,
In a case involving multiple people, investigators typically build a timeline by comparing each person's account. They examine questions such as, where was each person located? What time did certain events occur? Who communicated with whom? What actions happened before and after the incident? Were there photographs, videos, phone records, or other forms of documentation that support parts of the testimony? These questions help investigators separate confirmed facts from assumptions. Witnesses may also provide information that seems small but becomes important later. A conversation, a change in someone's behavior, a location detail, or an observation that initially appears insignificant can become meaningful when combined with other evidence. Investigators often collect large amounts of information before determining which details are important to the final explanation of events. The public discussion surrounding the Nolan Wells case also demonstrates the challenges of investigating cases in a digital era. Social media allows information to spread quickly, but it also creates the possibility of misinformation. Online communities often attempt to solve cases by analyzing interviews, photographs, and rumors. While public interest can sometimes bring forward helpful information, speculation can also unfairly affect people who have not been accused or charged with any crime. For families seeking answers, witness cooperation can be extremely important. Investigators rely on people coming forward with information even if they believe certain details may not matter. A small piece of information from one witness may help confirm another person's account or provide investigators with a new direction. That is why law enforcement agencies often encourage anyone with relevant information, photographs, videos, or memories of an event to contact investigators. Based on the family's public statements, the issue was not simply that Nolan Wells' phone was eventually returned, it was how it was recovered and what they say they found on it afterward. According to Nolan's mother, Christine Wansley, she said she used Life 360 to locate Nolan's phone after learning he was missing and saw that it was back on the mainland, not on Horn Island. She said a family friend went to retrieve the phone from the house of one of Nolan's friends and that there were issues getting it back. She recalled telling the friend's parent, "I'm Nolan's mom. We need his phone. We're trying to find him." After the phone was returned, she said she and her sister looked through it and found no photos or videos on either of Nolan's Snapchat accounts from that day, which she considered unusual because she said Nolan typically documented social events. She expressed concern that something may have been deleted. Attorney Ben Crump, representing the family, also publicly questioned why Nolan would have left his phone behind if he had voluntarily chosen to remain on the island, calling that scenario difficult to reconcile. At the same time, it's important to note that there has been no public finding by investigators that Nolan's friends deleted data from the phone or intentionally withheld it as part of a crime. Those concerns have been raised by the family and are part of the ongoing investigation, but they have not been established as fact. Wow, this is crazy. I want everyone to hit the like button and take a quick moment to leave your thoughts down in the comment section about what you feel happened. The questions surrounding witness statements. One of the biggest unanswered questions in the Nolan Wells investigation is why the accounts from some witnesses have become the focus of such intense public scrutiny. Since Nolan's disappearance on July 4th, 2026, investigators have interviewed numerous people who were on or near Horn Island that day. As details emerged, social media users began comparing witness statements, emergency call recordings, cell phone information, and public interviews, leading to widespread speculation about whether everyone had fully explained what they saw. However, as of this writing, investigators have not publicly accused Bart Edmiston Jr. or any other witness of concealing Nolan's death or committing a crime. People.com. Public attention intensified because Bart Edmiston Jr. was identified as someone who helped another boat that experienced mechanical problems near Horn Island. According to statements released through his attorney and family, he cooperated with investigators, voluntarily answered questions, and provided information that could assist the investigation. His family has strongly denied online claims that he witnessed Nolan's death or attempted to hide what happened, describing those allegations as false and announcing plans to pursue legal action against defamatory statements. People.com. At the same time, Nolan Wells' family has continued to ask difficult questions that remain unanswered. They have questioned the timeline of events, the handling of Nolan's cell phone, the disappearance of Snapchat content, and inconsistencies they believe deserve additional investigation. Their attorney has repeatedly called for a complete review of witness statements, digital evidence, and forensic findings before any final conclusions are reached. Those concerns reflect the family's search for answers, but they do not by themselves establish wrongdoing by any individual. The Guardian. The investigation remains active and law enforcement has continued to seek additional photos, videos, and eyewitness accounts from anyone who was present on Horn Island that day. Until the investigators release definitive findings or criminal charges are filed, the reasons for any differences in witness recollections remain uncertain. In major investigations, it is common for different witnesses to remember events differently, especially during fast-moving or stressful situations. Determining which accounts are accurate is ultimately the responsibility of investigators who compare interviews with physical evidence, digital records, and forensic results rather than relying on speculation. The death of Nolan Wells has generated widespread public attention, with many people closely examining the available evidence while investigators continue to work toward determining exactly what happened. As new witness accounts, recordings, and publicly discussed audio have surfaced, they have prompted additional questions about the timeline of the events on Horn Island. At this stage, however, many details remain unresolved, and investigators have not publicly concluded that any witness committed a crime or intentionally concealed evidence. Public reporting indicates that Nolan's family has questioned inconsistencies involving witness statements, cell phone data, and location information, while urging authorities to conduct a thorough investigation. Complex. One of the most discussed issues has been Nolan's cell phone. According to statements made publicly by his mother, she used the Life 360 application to locate his phone after realizing he was missing. She has said that the phone's reported location appeared to differ from Snapchat location information, creating confusion during the initial search. Those differences have become one of several topics investigators and the family's legal team have said deserve closer examination. Public reporting also states that the phone was eventually retrieved from a friend's residence after the family requested its return. The family has said they encountered difficulties recovering the phone, but investigators have not publicly concluded that those difficulties prove criminal intent or a cover-up. https://www.wtva.com. Questions have also circulated online about why the phone was returned later instead of immediately. At present, there is no publicly verified evidence establishing why the phone remained where it did or whether anyone deliberately withheld it. Several theories have been discussed publicly, but none have been confirmed by investigators. Because of that, it is important to distinguish unanswered questions from established facts. Returning the phone later may ultimately prove significant, or investigators may determine there was an innocent explanation. Until forensic analysis and witness interviews are complete, the reason remains unresolved. New York Post. Another issue receiving considerable attention involves the audio and video recorded during the trip. Various recordings have circulated publicly, leading to debate over whether they captured an argument and whether Nolan's voice was present. Some witnesses have disputed interpretations of the recordings, while others have suggested the audio deserves additional forensic review. Public reports indicate investigators continue evaluating available recordings alongside witness statements rather than relying on internet speculation. Today, news. The family's attorneys have repeatedly emphasized that the phone itself may contain valuable evidence. Public reports state they saw preservation and inspection of data from the device and later pursued records from social media platforms and Life 360 so experts could determine whether information had been deleted or whether important digital evidence remained available. Those requests reflect investigative steps rather than proof that data was actually removed by any specific individual. New York Post. Life 360 has become one of the most closely examined pieces of digital evidence because Nolan's mother has publicly stated that the application's location history appeared inconsistent with other location information available that evening. That discrepancy has fueled questions from the family and commentators, but it has not yet resulted in an official explanation. Digital location services can occasionally differ because they rely on different technologies, update intervals, and available signals, so investigators typically compare multiple sources before reaching conclusions. Whether those differences have investigative significance remains under review. Complex. Public reporting also indicates the family found Nolan's Snapchat accounts unusually empty after recovering the phone. His mother has said that was inconsistent with his normal habit of documenting outings through photos and videos. Because of those concerns, attorneys representing the family have requested records from Snapchat and other technology companies to determine whether recoverable information exists. As of now, no public finding has concluded who, if anyone, deleted content or whether any deletion occurred after Nolan's disappearance. BIN, Black Information Network. As the investigation continues, law enforcement has repeatedly encouraged anyone with factual information to come forward, stressing that even seemingly minor details could prove valuable. That reflects the broader reality of complex investigations. Witness interviews, digital evidence, forensic examinations, and timeline reconstruction often take weeks or months before authorities are prepared to draw reliable conclusions. Until those processes are complete, many of the questions surrounding Nolan Wells' death remain unanswered.